Okay, we're all set? All right.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Diane.
So, we've set this up sort of like our work session. Back in November, we had decided that we were going to start taking a look at some of our zoning districts downtown. And the first one that we started, there are 5 separate zoning districts downtown, but we started with DC1. And we've been doing that at our work session. So at the first work session that we had, Jeff Murphy, who's our planner, came up and presented some possibilities for change in the DC1 zoning. I think some of you have probably seen that where we started off whether it would be 2-story full build out and a 3rd and 4th story. There had been some discussion at that time whether there would be some TDRs for the 3rd and 4th story. I know there's been some confusion over that. That was one of the premises when we started. I think that the TDRs for the upper stories at this point, from the discussion with the board, we have sort of taken that off the table as one of the ways to get that 3rd and 4th story, but we certainly, if anybody from the public would like to comment on that, we'd certainly like to hear your feedback on that. So just a little bit about the DC1 zoning. So we're all on our page as to what we're talking about. So Jeff has some slides here.
And I just want to say, Tim Hubbard really wanted to be here tonight, and he will be watching this and hearing all of your comments in order to make a decision and a vote on this important zoning downtown.
Thank you. So this picture is of the 5 different zones that we have downtown. So we have DC, as I said, 1 through 5. It's a little hard to see, but the blue is the DC1. To the south of that is DC2, which is along the riverfront there. You have DC3, which is the yellow areas. Then you have DC4, which is a little hard to distinguish here, but south of Railroad Avenue, the DC4 is the sort of the red color there, and the chunk that's in between the 2 red areas there is your DC5. So those are the different zoning areas that we have downtown. So this is a picture of DC1. This is the area that we're talking about. It contains approximately 112 parcels. It's on the western end, on the south side, it's really bordered by where the hotel is, basically by where Jerry and the Mermaid is over there. And then if you come all the way to the west, you're over by Griffin Hardware there. So it really is anything that fronts along along Main Street there, and there's just one outlying parcel in DC1, which is the Second Street Firehouse that would be included. So that is the area that we're discussing this evening. And I just wanted to go over just a little bit of the past, and this is just an aerial view of it, which is you can see the buildings a little bit clearer on here, and all of this will be available online also, so you can take a look at that also. So what we wanted to do was just take a look at some of what has brought us to this point in what we have on the books right now. So these are the plans. The downtown has been very well studied. We go back to 1995. We had a vision plan for downtown Riverhead was done. There was a Railroad Street Urban Renewal Plan in 1997. As most of you are aware, in 2003, the comprehensive plan was updated, in which new zoning was enacted at that time.
In 2004, the zoning was.
Right. And then there was the East Main Street Urban Renewal Plan. That was an update of the previous studies in 2008. The town of Riverhead in 2009 did what was a DC1 zoning district bulk study, which I believe Jeff will refer to. He'll use all of these studies, but he will have an overview of that one. And then the last study that was done was the town of Riverhead, Peconic River, 25A corridor, step 2, BOA nomination study, which was completed in April of 2016. That study was a little bit more comprehensive in that it did basically over from Tanger down West Main Street, all the way down, to the end of, and even up through East Main Street a little. But it did focus on the downtown area in that study also, and provided a lot of information. So a couple of the challenges, you know, one of the concerns is, and the reason that we're here and the reason that we're looking at this is because the revitalization of downtown Riverhead has lagged a little bit behind some of the other towns that have gone through a more active revitalization. And so we felt that it was really important to take a look at what we were doing, to go back and look at the studies that we've had, and try and look for ideas or ways to help build on what is already occurring there. But some of the challenges that are pointing out in the study is that the large retail spaces may no longer be practical for a downtown area. A lot of the spaces that we have down there that are vacant are very much larger than other thriving downtown areas. Some of the other things that came out in the study was that current zoning may lead to overinflated property values that could potentially discourage some development in the downtown area. And one of the things the community has continued to bring up, and is always mentioned in the study, is no current parking requirements. So with a combination of all these studies, you know, we've spent well over $1 million studying this area. So we feel that it's really, as I said, time that we took this information and really tried to implement some of it to see what we can do to move our downtown forward quickly. So at this point, I will turn it over to Jeff, but one of the ways that we thought we would do this evening is Jeff will go over, this is very similar to our work session procedure. He will present, and then once he's done presenting, we'll ask people from the public to come up and comment, and you can address the issues that have been brought up. So we know that this is not going to be the end all and be all of this, but one of the items that we would like to hear from you about in particular is the height of the buildings that you would like to see in downtown. So with that said, I'll turn this over to Jeff.
Thank you, Laura, members of the board. Good evening, everyone. As Laura mentioned, this effort really didn't begin last November. It began a long time ago. We've had a lot of studies in the downtown area, and that includes what's called the DC-1 Zoning District Bulk Study, and that was done in 2009. And one of the questions we've heard is why are we doing this? Is there really a need for it? I've heard some people say that the downtown is already built out, especially with the current development proposals being submitted to us already. And if you take a look at the table that you see on the wall, and if you have a copy of the handout, this chart will give you kind of an illustration as to where we were in 2009 and what the build-out potential is based upon the current zoning. When you take a look at three of these numbers, one is the total building footprint size. Back in 2009, it was built out approximately 500,000 square feet. And based upon the current zoning, it would allow well over 100,000 square feet more of additional development. The floor area ratio, which I'm going to talk to you about in detail in a moment, would also be almost doubled from the 0.7 that it was in 2009 to a full build-out of an average of 1.3. You'll see the magnitude of that in a moment, and the total building size that could be built out is more than double than it was in 2009. And just to give you some perspective on what that looks like, the photo on your left, a lot of you are going to be totally familiar with all the pictures I have for you. This is Peconic Avenue as you're coming from the town of Southampton from the traffic circle heading north. The building on your right is the Summerlin building. This is the Chase Bank, and this is the new Conifer building. What this shows is kind of the canyon effect that we're kind of concerned about that we would get along Main Street with 5-story, 60-foot tall buildings lining both sides of the street, which the current zoning allows. If you were, Summerlin right now is only 4 stories. It had the potential to being a 5th-story building. The Chase Bank is currently, it's only a 3-story interior space, but it really is, based on the height, it's a 4-story building. So it could be built out, not only in addition to the top of the building, this entire parking lot could be built out to a 5-story, 0-foot setback along Peconic Avenue. And then this is Peconic Crossing. That is a 60-foot, 5-story building. The photo to your right is seen from East Main Street, looking east, excuse me. This is the Conifer Building, 60 feet tall, 5 stories. This is the building to the west of it. It is a 2-story building. So you can see in comparison what a 5-story building looks like compared to a 2-story. Everybody will recognize these photos. This is the view of Main Street looking east from Roanoke. These are all 2-story buildings right at the corner of Roanoke and Main Street. The building that you see to the right is the Peconic House, the new hotel behind it. This is
Preston House.
Preston House, excuse me. I got Peconic on my brain. This is a 2-story building that luckily the developer maintained. I think we all know and love its charm. The building behind it is 5 stories, and it's the new modern architecture that we're starting to see a prevalence of in the downtown. These are proposed developments. So the one on your left is what's called the 203-213 East Main Street. This is Main Street right through here. This is East End Arts campus right here, 2-story buildings. Everybody knows that facility. This is the proposed development, 5-story, 60-foot tall, 170 apartments being proposed. The building on your right is the approved and under construction project by David Gallo. It's called Riverview Lofts. It is 5-story, 60-foot tall, and 117 units. And this is looking from the west, looking toward the west.
And Jeff, just because some of the property, those properties are sloped a bit in the back, the back of the Gallo project is actually almost 75 feet tall.
In the back of the building, yes. One thing in terms of building height, on Main Street, it's 60 feet tall. In the back of the building, it's closer to 75 feet because under the New York State Building Code, to come up with a building height, you take the low point of the building in terms of the topography and the front by Main Street, and you divide that by 2 to get the midpoint, and that's the height that has to be 60 feet. So the front of the building is 60 feet because the property slopes down towards the back, towards Peconic River, and you'll see that in most of the development along South Main Street, you'll see a much taller face on the south side of the building than you will on the Main Street side.
It's average grade.
Average grade. Well said. The DC-1 also has another restriction to it. This is in the DC-1 zoning district. It says that we are not to issue any more certificate of occupancies for apartments once it reaches 500 units. And as this chart shows, we are at that level right now. We have the existing Summerlin project is already constructed and built. The Woolworth building, the Michael Butler building, Peconic Crossing, Riverview Lost, which is under construction. The 203-213 East Main Street, that's an application that is submitted right now being reviewed at 170 units. Suffolk Theater Building Addition in the back of the Suffolk Theater is 28 apartments. The Zenith Building has an application pending at 9 units. And then we've had a lot of other interest from other property owners to develop their property, which would add another approximately 50 units. And then there are already existing apartments, an estimate around 20 in the downtown area. And we end up all these numbers, you're at over 500 units. Part of the problem is why we're seeing the type of development that we are, is that we are using what's called the conventional zoning or traditional zoning. Sometimes you'll hear it referred to as Euclidean zoning. That's what the original zoning was in the United States back in 1930. It's a very fixed set of numbers. It's very rigid, and it focuses on what uses are not allowed rather than encouraging the type of development that we want to see. It applies design standards through a numerical system, which is almost impossible to achieve. You start seeing things such as floor-area ratio, which is very hard to regulate in terms of getting a type of development that you want to see. And if you want to know what the downtown is going to look like, this is what we're basing it on. This is our table of dimensional regulations for the DC-1 on the top row. This includes all the different zoning districts in the mixed use and commercial districts. On your left, DC-1 is the top row. And if you try to design a building just based upon that, all you have to do is take a look outside and see the existing development, and that's what you will see, that's what it's arriving at with the existing zoning.
And Jeff, just out of clarity, for DC one through DC five, and I know there's been a lot of talk about having development just not right on Main Street, but allowing larger development outside of the DC one district and the other districts. Currently, that is not permitted, and that would be something that we would have to take a look at, in conjunction with this as we move along.
Yeah, the other zoning districts allow a maximum building height of 35 feet, and when you take a look at other areas such as by the train station, that just cries for a transit-oriented type of development where you have a taller building than 35 feet, and hopefully get more train service. That would really revitalize that area of the town where it's really needed.
So what we've done with our zoning is we've concentrated it all into the Main Street area instead of in the walkable surrounding areas, which a lot of the other downtowns have been spreading theirs out a little bit further out from their downtown and leaving their downtown, the historic area intact.
And that's the way you usually see zoning, is you see a very dense, tightly knit corridor, and then as you move away from that corridor, you see it with Route 58, you have a very dense, tightly, high-density development along the corridor, and then as you proceed, especially to the north, that density falls off, and the zoning corresponds to that, where you see less and less development as you head north.
Also keeping in mind too, that we have a National Historic District that extends all the way down to the railroad tracks north of Main Street. So we wanna make sure that those old historic structures stay intact and not get demolished for 5-story buildings by pushing all of the 5-story buildings off of Main Street and closer to the tracks.
So one of the things that we're looking at, and we've talked about this quite a bit with all the different groups that have been looking at our efforts so far, is to look at this from a form-based code point of view. It is a much more flexible means of getting design standards rather than just a numerical system of arriving at a type of development that you're trying to achieve. It's way more proactive. It focuses on what the community wants rather than what it dislikes. It tailors the requirements to your surrounding neighborhood, and the one thing about design is it's really based upon context. How does that development fit, and is it compatible with surrounding development? And that's what the emphasis of a form-based code is. And if you take a look at these buildings, one of the things that we're really trying to strive for with the new code is to get away from the flat face front of buildings on Main Street, and in the back of the properties is a very bland, not human scale point of view. We're trying to get some more building articulation, more inches along the street front, where you have, rather than calling them setbacks, as from, you typically hear of a building setback as how many feet setback does a building have to be. We're looking at what are called step backs, especially on the upper floors, especially on the 3rd and 4th floor, where the building is actually articulated and step back a little bit from the different street views, so that you can get a porch, you get a different building and variation, you can create some interest, you get more light and air on the upper floors as you're looking at it from Main Street. So it's not just a blank wall facing the Main Street, you have a lot more interesting building to look at.
Great rendering you got, Jeff. Really articulates what we've been talking about.
And this is another example of what a form-based code does. Rather than taking a look at that table that I showed you earlier of what our current zoning allows, I think you can see from this picture what the dimensions in terms of a width from the building face to the street is, what the street width is, what the building height is. There's a building step back in here. You can see what the proposed development would look like based upon that code. And it's much easier to see what that proposed development would look like in the real world. Unfortunately, with our current zoning, it doesn't really show the difference between what's being proposed and what's surrounding it. The form-based code does that. These are some of the definitions that we need to evaluate as we go through our evaluation of this whole exercise of looking at the DC1. These are terminologies. If you have the handout, we want you to take this with you when you go with you this evening. So these are things for you to consider. One is the building setback. You hear me talk about that a lot. The current code right now allows a 0-foot setback along all of the property lines. One of the things we're looking at is maybe not have a 0-foot setback along all the property lines. Maybe you have a step back on your 3rd and 4th floor, again, to provide more building interest, more articulation, more light and air. Another way of looking at our amount of development of project is the impervious coverage. rather than having 100% building build out, in other words, having a building cover the entire lot, you only allow, say, a percentage, say 80%, and that's what we're recommending, is to have 80% impervious coverage. This, again, would shrink the footprint of the building, provide a little bit more open space, maybe have a plaza, provides more opportunity for drainage on the property. And the next slide you're going to see, this has been kind of the key means of regulating the amount of development that can happen on a property. And that is called the floor area ratio. You also hear it sometimes referred to as the FAR. And rather than read all this verbiage, I want you to take that home with you. That's why it has so much text in it. This is the key formula right here. If you take the square footage of each of the floors that you are proposing, so if you have a 5-story building, 5,000 square foot per floor, that's a 25,000 square foot building. You divide that by the floor area of, the ground floor area of that lot, and that gives you what's called the floor area ratio. And this drawing really illustrates what it means. This is a 1-story building, built lot line to lot line. If you take that as a 2-story building, you get to save 50% of the site for open space or parking. And the third alternative is you take the building, shrink this footage, now you have a 3-story building, you have a lot more opportunity for parking and open space.
So that one would be a 4-story building too, and they would all be considered a floor area ratio of 1 for that size lot?
Yes. Now, the FAR allowed currently in the DC1 is an FAR of 4.0. That is a very large number. And I can give you an example of what that means. These are existing and proposed developments, and it shows what the FAR is. Let me just get to my page. I apologize. I can't read the screen from where I am. Peconic Crossing has an FAR of 2.39. Summerwin, 2.98. The Riverview Lofts that you see under construction is 3.19. The proposed development known as 203, 213 East Main Street has a proposed FAR of 3.04. None of these are close to what the zoning allows of 4.0. So if you think these are large buildings, the zoning allows even a lot more development than our zoning currently allows. One example, the Summerwin building that you see right here, it's only 4 stories. Under the zoning, it could have been a 5-story building, and it would have been much closer to that 4.0 FAR. So what happens if you reduce the FAR? Oops, there you go. What the reduction in the FAR means is less building height, perhaps. That's one way of doing it. Going from a 5-story to a 4-story. It means allowing more building articulation. This is an example of a 4-story building right here. And if you can see, this is actually a 4th story here, where you have a sloped roof, a bit different building articulation, allowing a lot more light and air. You see a lot more building articulation with the front facade along the streetscape and on the 2nd through 4th floor. The other thing it does, it provides for more open space at the ground level. The one thing you've heard me talk a lot about is called a POP, P-O-P, which means a privately owned public space. So that developer would provide some open space at the ground level that could be used as a cafe, a park, a place for public assembly. So if you want to have a little outdoor seating area for the public or some concerts, that would be done. It'd still be owned by the developer. But it would be open to the public. I'll give you one example of that. You have a really good example at the aquarium. It's a very big building. If you go there, what do you see? You see
Jeff, I just think you need to do
Gotta
the
be-
mic, otherwise it's not gonna catch. Sorry.
Larry, you good?
That's better.
At the aquarium, you see a very large sculpture of a whale with a fountain. You also have seals. I know when my children were young and we would go to the aquarium, the first thing they wanted to go was go see the seals. It's an attraction for the owner of the aquarium. It brings people to the area. It's also a nice place to go just to get off the main street. It's not just a blank facade of a wall, which nobody wants to go to see, and not just have a single door to go into that store. It provides an area that you want to go to. It's an attraction for the developer, for the business, and it's just a nice place to be. Ta-da. This is an example of another interesting building design for 4 stories that encapsulates everything that I've just spoke about. This is 4 stories. You have a broken up building facade, both in a horizontal plane, where you have broken up articulation along the main street frontage. You have a different step back along the 4th floor. These are actually balconies that are actually usable by the residential units on the upper floor. You obviously have this very interesting architectural detail with the, I don't know what you would call that, architect can tell me what that is, turret of some sort. And the other thing is here's their pop. They have this very large plaza right in front of the building that people can go to and congregate, they can read. I don't know if you can see it from this image. Does anybody know what that is? That's a 7-Eleven. So you heard me talk a lot about different things. We're obviously not near completion on what we're looking at doing. We've talked about performance standards, but we're not going to talk about those in great detail tonight because I could be here for another hour talking about just those. What are our next possible options that we could do with what we're looking at? The first option is do nothing, just keep things the way they are, let things build out, have the 0-foot setback, 60-foot 5-story buildings that front on both sides of Main Street. The other option is to keep proceeding forward, and that's my recommendations. Keep evaluating, taking a look at the options and alternatives that present themselves. Allow a maximum of 4 floors, reduce the floor area ratio from 4.0 to 2.5. That's more in keeping with the development that we're seeing and looking at proposing. Require more articulated building step backs. Require a maximum 80% building coverage. And the last thing is we really want to retain the existing historic culture and buildings that we have on Main Street. And one way of doing that is allow them to maintain their 100% building coverage. And that concludes my presentation to you, board, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jeff.
I just wanted to say, thanks, Jeff. I think you did a good job of illustrating the current zoning versus some of the different elements that we are looking at. And also, just wanted to reiterate, we talked about that we're really focusing on the DC1, but there are other areas that if we were able to change the zoning, we could put some taller buildings in. And the railroad station, even though you're saying there are some historic buildings there, I mean, right across from the railroad station there's plenty of room. There's no historic buildings there, and it's a good location to put some of the taller buildings, and works well as far as transit's concerned. So I just wanted to add that in.
Anything else from any of the board?
I just wanted to clarify the existing historic structures downtown that are allowed 100% build out. Those are pretty much buildings that are already existing from property line to property line. So we want to allow those existing buildings to remain and not have them to cut back to 80%.
How do I get the signal back?
Good announcements.
Just escape zone.
Oh, yeah. I'm just gonna wait for Jeff to finish.
There we go. That's perfect.
Okay, so if anybody from the public would like to speak, get up and speak, or bring up any items, we'd love to hear from you. If you're in your seat and you talk loud too, you can do that.
I think
Go to the mic,
No,
okay.
I think we should
Yeah,
go to the
mic,
mic.
move the
okay.
mic around.
Everybody wants to hear what everybody has to
Yeah.
say.
Good afternoon. My name is Isabel. I live in downtown Riverhead. So, with all due respect to Mr. Murphy. Jeff. Thank you. Now, of course, we don't want Riverhead to do nothing, but one thing that should be resolved in Riverhead is the sign coming into Riverhead. The sign has been broken for 10 years. Now, we've spent millions of dollars in studies BOA study, bulk studies, but the sign is cracked. Therefore, Riverhead is cracked. That's the perception of Riverhead. Now, as far as the residential units, we're up to max 500 residential units. Are we counting the overcrowded housing in downtown Riverhead with the residential units?
No.
So we're gonna build more units, but we're not counting the overcrowded housing already in downtown Riverhead. Okay. As far as development, these block buildings that look like projects in New York City, and Brooklyn and Queens, and as kids up Island in Mineola call Riverhead the ghetto, well, the more blocks we build, we will begin to look like the ghetto. As far as development, have we ever considered LEED certified?
Yeah, that's part of the design standards that Jeff was referring to, but what we thought we'd do is just kind of chunk it out, and we figured that this is, for this first meeting, we would address these particular issues.
Yeah, because
But
most economic revitalization committees and bids, whenever there's development coming into an area that's dilapidated or an opportunity zone, they usually request the developers or builders to construct LEED certified. This way it protects the community, the natural resources. The Peconic Riverfront is a flood zone area. What about the salt intrusion? What are we gonna do there? What about the endangered species that are there? What about the fish and the birds? Now, I moved here in 2009, and there have been more people who've moved here since then. And they've all from Amagansett, my neighbors from Montauk, they all moved to Riverhead because they love the community character. It does not look like a historic community town.
Thank you.
Hi, Ellen Hoyle, Riverhead. And I just wanted to say I enjoyed your presentation, Jeff. It was great. One of the things that concerns me is and I'm sure this will be specified more when you actually do the code, but the historic building being allowed to maintain 100% building coverage. I'm assuming that should the historic building change its formation in any shape or form, that 100% limitation would be done away with.
Correct.
Okay. The one thing I wanted to specify was that in reading the town code chapter that deals with land development specifies that the chapter is to regulate and restrict the height, number, stories, and size of buildings and other structures. And this is the important part, I think, so as to promote the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the town of Riverhead with reasonable considerations, among other things, of the character of the district and its peculiar suitability for particular uses and the conservation of property values, and to encourage the most appropriate use of land in the town of Riverhead in accordance with a comprehensive plan. DC1 was created for the specified purpose and intent that it was to maintain and foster a traditional downtown character along Main Street with a pedestrian-friendly streetscape, active ground floor uses. And all of this was under section 3001-4, says interpreting and applying the provisions of this chapter, such provisions shall be held to be minimum requirements for the promotion of the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. To me, building 5-story buildings or anything over 4 stories and creating this cavernous channel down Main Street, to me goes against what the code is actually intended for. And to change the DC zoning district to allow for this form building, would be more in alliance with what the town code already says. And I don't see it more as a restriction, as more of a codification of what's already there. So that was all I had to say. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm a Town of Riverhead resident, and I'll be reading a statement on behalf of the Long Island Builders Institute. Redevelopment is essential to bring about the revitalization of Riverhead's downtown. It is the position of the Long Island Builders Institute that no artificial barriers should be put in place that may slow or disrupt the town's economic progress, which has already started to pay dividends with regard to decline in the number of vacancies in the downtown area. 4 to 5-story buildings already exist in the downtown area, and new development should be built to complement them. If any changes to zoning practice in the area should be made, it should only apply to projects proposed after the law has been put into effect. It is not fair to ask property owners to change submitted plans that they have already committed so much time, money, and effort into. While we do support the town's effort to make changes to parking requirements and the desire to keep the outward appearance of buildings consistent, we cannot support the requirements of TDRs in the downtown. TDRs will slow, if not completely stifle, the redevelopment that economic revitalization is so dependent upon. The use of TDRs should be implemented along Route 58 and other commercial areas of the town where such development has already occurred. The use of these credits with regard to downtown housing will only delay or significantly reduce the redevelopment of the area, both of which would not benefit the economic activity of the town. Thank you for the opportunity to express our position, and we hope that you take our views into consideration as you proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi,
Hi.
my name's Kamala, and I live on Second Street.
Just
And I'm
speak in the
looking at-
microphone, please, ma'am.
And I'm looking at these proposals, and I see this massive white construction with an awful lot of apartments, which we're hoping to fill. And I don't know if we're gonna fill them, number one. And number two, I think it's going to affect the character of downtown Riverhead. You've got Route 58, where you've got stores. You wanna put buildings, put the buildings over there. It doesn't interfere with a lot of the residents of downtown Riverhead, and we can maintain our downtown Riverhead. Are there some buildings on on Main Street that can be redone? Yes, they're not all historical buildings, but some of them are. Are we going to take, for instance, the Star Confectionery, which is in that zone? Are we gonna knock that down and put a 5-story building there? I sure hope not. Are we going to take the fire station? Are we going to put a 5-story building behind the fire station? Well, I'm on Second Street. I don't want a 5-story building when I'm looking out of my window. I don't know about the other residents, but I think there has to be a better way to do this. And I think that a lot of the residents need to have a stronger voice to do something about this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Susan Fraunhofer. My husband's been in Riverhead since '76. I've been here since '82. And since that time, I only see Riverhead getting worse and worse. I don't think there should be anything higher than 2 stories in downtown. I don't come to the east end of Long Island to live in New York City, and that's what I see happening. It's like you talk about revitalization. I don't use a lot of the stores downtown now because I can't get parking. I go to the store and I can't get in, so I don't go. And you're talking about apartments. Where are all the people? You can't be that naive to think that everyone that lives in these apartments aren't going to have cars. Where are you going to park them all and expect people to use the businesses downtown? It's not going to happen. As it is now, it's like traffic jams at certain times. Right now, I go to the gym on Main Street, Maximum Performance. Yesterday morning, I went and the parking lot was practically full. And now you're going to build apartments behind the Suffolk Theater. Now the people living there are going to take over the parking spots. So what's going to happen? People aren't going to go to Maximum Performance. I'll end up going to a different gym, and therefore they won't get the business and they'll close down. We had a thriving downtown years ago with lots of stores because you had parking to get into the stores. You don't have a thriving downtown because people don't want to go there because you go, you drive, and you can't get in. I go elsewhere. I leave Riverhead town. There are times, the Blue Duck Bakery, I'd love to go in there. But I'd have to park 3 blocks away to walk to get something small. I say, forget it. And you wonder why businesses don't stay? because you can't keep putting more and more residents in downtown and expect businesses to thrive. You're not gonna get, those businesses are not gonna get the walking traffic from people living in those apartments, I hate to tell you. I used to go to Patchogue. I don't go to Patchogue anymore because you can't find parking anymore to get into any of the places there. You want something in Riverhead? Riverhead's the only town that doesn't have a movie theater. We've been waiting for that for years. We're still waiting for it.
Yes, we are.
Need a movie theater. Thank
So,
you.
just so you know, the parking is a big concern, and when I first took office, we were hoping to have a parking problem, and now we do, because of the revitalization efforts that have come and all the restaurants that have come, Parabel, you know, we had, a lot has happened downtown. But we're in the midst of a parking study right now. The draft parking plan has come forward, and the board is going to be discussing that. We paid a consultant to tell us how to optimize our space that the town owns to create more parking. And I think that's a key.
It's not a small, it's not a country town anymore. It's
Nor
like the
will it
poor,
ever
I
be.
wouldn't wanna be someone that lives on Second Street right now.
Nor will
And
it ever be. Nor will it ever be.
I don't want it to be a city.
I don't either. But
Well,
it
that's
needs-
what it's looking like now.
It needs to be sustainable.
Well, it ain't gonna be sustainable when you have all these apartments down there, I'm sorry.
Oh, I disagree.
You'd have plenty of living space.
I disagree.
Well, I disagree with you. I don't like what I see happening in Riverhead. It's getting worse and worse. And I've lived here, like I said, since '82. And it's not the Riverhead I knew, and every time I turn around, every time a new thing comes, it's not better.
Not for that I know either. I'm here since '62.
Well,
I know.
it
It is what it is. I
yeah,
get it.
but you talk about revitalizing downtown. There is no downtown anymore. Putting
Exactly.
apartments don't make it downtown. It makes it New York City if you put apartments in.
Makes it village.
No, it's not that's definitely not a village. It's a city.
Study.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Study.
My name is Astrid Lehman, and I'm an actual Bating Hollow resident, but I always say when somebody asks me where I live that I'm from Riverhead. I feel that one of the things that drove me to come to this community was an actual village on Main Street. And my first impression was that I came here one day, and I think it was Mercy was having a homecoming parade down on Main Street. That character is what the people who live here like. This is what we want. And we can talk about all the details, the zoning, et cetera. But what is it that people really enjoy? What do they like? What can they become involved in? And I do appreciate the position of someone who's a builder, who has to go through a very onerous process to apply and do things. But there has to be a balance here. And if the balance means that it's a 3-story versus a 5-story, I think that really has to be considered. We have to look at those things, the aesthetic component of what's happening. Those buildings are not attractive to people who feel that we need our Main Street. You need foot traffic, but you have to have places for people, like they said, to park, and stores have to be able to be in place. And it's just not all about apartment, clustered living. It's just not, and I'm kind of curious as my kids could never afford to live in some of these apartments. I worked with a nurse who was in an apartment downtown. Her salary was adjusted. She could no longer live there because she didn't meet the requirement anymore.
She probably made more money than what was allowed.
Because she was mandated in overtime. She had to work, okay. So what do you do for a young single professional that wants to come and work at a location on the East End? What do you do for that person?
Well, I think that's sort of the point of what we're trying to look. I think that there needs to be a range of housing, so that people can live downtown. I think that's one of the hallmarks of a good downtown is you have a diverse downtown with people of whether somebody's just starting out, somebody's in the middle of their career, or somebody's of retirement age. But I think that's what creates a strong community, and I think that's part of the discussion that we're having here also. And and that sort of goes to, if all the buildings are valued at 5 stories, but they can't all support 5 stories, then sometimes that leads to nobody developing those buildings, which is a challenge.
I understand that, but if you take a good look at what the students did for the mural, they're not seeing 5-story buildings that are downtown. They're looking at the Pulaski Street School, which every single person that has ever come to this town that I've been familiar with said, wow, look at that building, that's a really nice building. We couldn't continue that aesthetic throughout the building process?
Well, that's why we're here, we would like to,
Well,
but
that's
in
why
order
I'm
to do
saying
that,
it.
we have to codify it.
But that's why everything north of Route 58, like you have the stores that actually front Route 58, and everything north of there, you can't build what you can build on Route 58. And everything north of Main Street is pretty much limited to what you can build also. I think that my predecessors on the town board that adopted the zoning and did the comprehensive studies, which was probably a year of community participation as to what people wanted to see in downtown, and there were all the civic groups involved and the business owners and everybody, and they said the zoning that's in place today is what they wanted.
And,
One thing
and
that
they
wasn't
saw
take-
the kind of building that you just showed us that's being built out?
I don't disagree, and I agree with the form-based zoning, and I agree with certain character of downtown, but I also agree with the parking, and, you know, we have to figure out a problem for the parking,
Okay,
without a
well,
doubt, and that's not part of this study.
right. And if you go to Port Jeff, there's a parking issue, and it's a popular place, and people still will go there, and you have to pay for parking. My son lives in a suburb in Detroit. He has to pay for parking. You use your card, you park. I think they have to pay for parking in Patchogue as well.
Yes.
I mean, parking is an
Some of it.
issue in a lot of places, but that, to me, the aesthetic is what, the character of the town is what's important. Let's keep it looking like something.
Yeah,
not
when they did
just
the
a
zoning,
mishmash.
they just focused on certain areas, like Main Street, 5-story buildings, Route 58, big box stores, commercial development. You can't build smaller stores on Route 58, they didn't wanna see strip
I'm not
malls.
concerned about Route 58, I'm concerned about Main Street and how it looks, because that's the heart of our greater community. Again, if you live in Jamesport, if you live in Bating Hollow, you don't say, I live in Roanoke Hills, you say, I'm from Riverhead. And when they think of that, they think of the village. We've had a lot of big Polish festival, the country fair. People like to come here. But if you have all these tall canyon-like buildings, it's less charming, it's less attractive, it's not as, and we want foot traffic. And as far as the downtown getting better, I think we've kind of stalled out. As a matter of fact, my favorite restaurant just left town. So I felt pretty bad about that. And it's not enough foot traffic to support the restaurants that are down there. So that needs to be looked at as well.
That's, if I could just, and I wasn't gonna chime in, I just wanted to listen, but everybody's touching on a little bit everything, but I can tell you, yes, parking's a problem. But all, what you're talking about with the canyon effect is all design. I mean, those were renderings, those aren't actual, the ones were renderings. So, designs, sitescapes, streetscapes, shadowscapes, all those things are through design. So that can all be tastefully done to keep, even new construction can look historic, the way it's done. So that could all be done through planning, through site plans, through renderings. That's not the issue. I think to create, and I disagree with one of the speakers. I worked on Main Street over 40 years ago, and it was dying then. It was dying then with Gramps and Billy Blake. I can tell you that at that time, back in '75, the big thing was, you gotta turn these stores around and face the river. We're not showcasing our asset. So I say, I'm not opposed to 5-story buildings as long as it's tastefully done with the sitescapes, the streetscapes. We need public spaces. The town should invest, and I've said this 100 times, and put some sort of a square in the middle of town that we own, that everybody can build around. The downtown it's dying. And people say, oh, I want the quaintness. For the last 20 years, and I live in downtown. I can't walk downtown and walk a whole city block that looks like Beirut. There's just nothing there.
I agree, but are 5-story buildings
So what
gonna
is the
bring
quaintness we're looking for?
revitalization? That's the question.
Well, it's sustainability. You can read the studies on it, read Patchogue, Bayshore, read all of these
Okay,
towns.
well, to me, sustainability is Port Jeff, Northport, Port Washington. Those are all small level towns. They didn't have to do those kinds of things.
No, but they did a lot of luxury apartment building in Huntington. I just spoke to Melody yesterday. There's a lot of that development going. Yes, does it need 5 stories? I'm not gonna argue that point, but you do need residential. You definitely, it has to be parked downtown.
I'm not disagreeing that there shouldn't be residential, but there has to be a balance here. And I'm not so sure that adding another story and making that aesthetic is the way to go.
Well, I don't think anybody knows, even those clapping don't know.
Thank you.
I do have to say, I just wanna chime in, you mentioned something about coming here because you liked the hometown feel and the parades. Absolutely, there's a balance and we have to figure that out, but if you talk to anyone that has come to Riverhead and you know, some of us have been here forever. When you were downtown, I was working at Billy Blake's, but, if you talk to anyone that's come here in the last 20 years or so, they'll say that's what drew them to town. That's what drew them to this town. The historic buildings and the hometown feel and the rural look. So, yes, there's a balance we have to strike.
Right, well, nobody argues that point.
Hi, Chrissy Curtis, Riverhead. So tonight's for discussion, so we can just throw things out there for discussion.
Sure.
Okay. So,
You see what?
I know parking has been, the word has been said, but I mean, I don't understand why it's not practically the focus of this entire conversation.
Well, I'll just a little bit about the parking. You know, when I first came into office, we had a public hearing on the parking, but at that point, the town was in the middle of doing a parking study, a parking plan, so we just finally got that back within the past week or two. And the recommendations going forward will be addressing the parking as a separate issue, for the number of, if you have a residential unit, what the parking requirements will be there. And I think we're all in agreement that we're looking to put that on the books, you know, very soon, with the parking. So that is definitely not something that's being ignored. That should be rolling out also within the next, you know, couple weeks.
Okay, but when you say it's not being ignored, and now it is now being rolled out, just specifically, because like Robert, I've been here my whole life, and I'm looking at this, and I'm just so wondering, the apartments that are being built across from the Congregational Church on Main Street, what is the parking how many units are there? What is the parking? I mean, I'm way late on this, I understand,
That's under the
but,
current code, which doesn't require the parking.
And neither does the proposed code require parking.
Well, the proposed code isn't addressing the parking.
It's not requiring parking, which is something I brought up from the very beginning, but anyway.
Well,
how can it not be a part of it? And one more thing I wanna say, somebody mentioned something about paying for parking and having the town, and then you pay for parking. Just logically, it seems to me that the people who want to build these residential units, they should be the ones to pay for parking and to provide the parking. You know, one of their stories is going to have to be parking. These people who are gonna move into these apartments across from the church on Main Street, they're in for a rude awakening. They really are, especially the first time we have a hurricane or very bad storms or anything like that. That is, I don't know where they're gonna go. One more
I
thing.
disagree with you. That's why we're here, because, you know,
That's
as
why I'm
we
putting it
showed
out,
all
yeah.
of those studies that were done over the year after year after year, and, you know, since 2000, the master plan is 2003, the zoning 2004, there was a $700,000 study done in 2016, but then the information from that has not been, no, the BOA study was 2016. Has not been implemented. There were a lot of recommendations in there, but there has been no implementation of some of those recommendations. And part of those recommendations are what we're discussing here today.
Okay, again,
So-
that's why I'm putting
Yeah.
putting it out there. On Saturday, this past Saturday, in, you know, the middle of winter, I went to Diggers to have dinner with, there was 6 of us. We had 2 different cars. We pulled in and took the last parking spot in that parking lot at 2:30 on a Saturday afternoon. If I was Diggers, I'd be here, really having a. Yeah, I'd be up here, you know, because my sister, luckily, they were meeting us there. They went and parked over almost behind the gym and walked over and met us. But if it was just them, then we would've kept going.
Well, that'll be our next forum within the next couple of weeks, because we're just about ready to roll out the study from that, so
And actually, that particular lot, I think, is one of the most challenging. I find myself circling round and round back there, and I hear a lot of complaints.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
lot behind that section of
And I
store.
also think when you were mentioning the existing other apartments down on Main Street, you know, the here and there's above stores and that, I think it's more than the 20 or whatever you had on there. I think there's a lot more down there.
Yeah. But the parking study that we're looking at is going to look at the parking spaces in front of stores. Somebody mentioned Blue Duck Bakery, and I know I've spoken to them before too. And the Business Improvement District and the Parking District have tried to limit like 15-minute parking right in front of the stores so that the people that are living in the apartments, upper apartments, aren't parking there all day long. And we created a new police sector downtown, which is going to be writing tickets and enforcing that code to make sure that people aren't parking there all day long when it should be open to people running in and out of
There's a lot of
businesses.
things to work with pile-ups and with maybe muni parking with, right, all that stuff.
I just don't see how these structures can even be considered without a parking,
I
you know,
agree with you
solution.
absolutely 100%.
Okay.
We agree, thank you.
Yes.
We didn't have a parking problem, and some of these structures started to get built, and now that these structures are built, now we have a parking problem. And now that these structures are built, a lot more people are coming into town wanting to open up restaurants and divide a big space into 3 spaces where you have Ralph's Italian Ice, and you have the, you know, farmer's market, and you have the Blue Duck. So a lot of what you're talking about is something that I think we all agree with, and it's innovation of the property owners and the people that want to come downtown and be successful and have a sustainable business, as well as having the foot traffic to service those businesses. And you know, a lot of things Catherine brought up today at work session, and the committee that's working on the downtown revitalization is the perception of Riverhead. And, you know, that's something that we need to work towards changing. And we have a lot of great people and volunteers that are working towards that. And I think that Catherine is also taking names for more people, volunteers with your great ideas to come.
We will get the sign fixed. How's that?
Wait a second.
Simple.
Okay. Okay, but some of the good things that came out of the BOA study where it was said that nothing had come out of the BOA study, but some of the good things that had come out of the BOA study was the National Historic District that we have downtown that recognizes all of those historic structures that we have downtown, and we have great volunteers that really care about the historical integrity of our downtown, that are very active in these committees. So the historical structures, we have the Wayfarer signs that I think are being made right now as we speak that will direct people into parking lots and where to go and where the, you know, sites are to see, the aquarium, direction signs, so that people know where to go. And they'll be consistent. It's not just gonna be a blue sign here and a black sign there and a red sign there and a purple sign there. They're all gonna be with the same design and the same color format, and it's really a new sense of branding for our downtown that is something that we've all worked on and gotten grant money for, and it's important. And the parking study, that the draft is out, so they're gonna be telling us how we can better optimize our parking spaces downtown.
Okay, and one other
Sorry.
quick question, that's okay. Is there a time period in which stores can be empty down there too? I mean, can they just be vacant for many, many years? With
Yes,
no-
they can be vacant, but they also have to maintain them in a certain order. And that's done through, we have a blighted property code, we have a triannual fire inspection. So that's taking a look at it from those perspectives.
And just to let you know, well, we started the blighted property code this year, and we just tweaked it as per our code enforcement people who noted that we weren't able to get to those vacant buildings that had been vacant for a long time. So we did just tweak the blighted properties code so that we could address that issue.
All right, good, thank you.
Thank you. I just, one other second, somebody asked what the BOA was. The BOA is the Brownfields Opportunity Area. It's a designation, but as part of that designation, there was a grant opportunity available that would study the area and then determine the best avenues after studying and a lot of community input and a lot of community sessions, what could practically be done to help revitalize that area. And that's where a lot of the information's coming up there. And if anybody wants to look at any of the studies that have done previously, they are on our community development agency. It's on the Riverhead Town webpage, and if you go to the community development agency, all of the studies are there, and you can download the links from all of those studies.
Noreen LeCam, Riverhead. Mine's more of an emotional kind of thing. I drive all over the East End. I go to other towns. And the villages of Southampton, villages of Southold, I don't see any five-story apartment buildings. I don't care. I think Riverhead is my village. It was one thing when Tanger came in west of us, and I didn't get really emotional about that, not because I'm a major shopper, that's a lie. But Tanger was far enough away from us, so it was all right. And then we lost Route 58, and we lost it, and the farming, and so much of the land. I sometimes forget what it actually looked like. And those big box stores, they're closing. And so we have more empty buildings. If we don't preserve what we have, then we have nothing to give our children. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Cullen, you didn't get your time yielded. Marty's yielding his time today. So,
Nothing changes with you, Sean.
no, I am very happy to be on this end of the podium. So I just want to give the town board a little bit of perspective. I think this is a good opportunity to talk to folks. But one of the things that I want people to understand is there's a lot of people, Mr. Petroselli, Mr. Gallo, Mr. Munchnick, that have made millions of dollars conifer of investment, the Israels in downtown and Railroad Avenue. And one of the things that I felt very guilty about is they made all this investment in downtown, and to some extent the town did not deliver, because we tried to drag them kicking and screaming. Trust me, in 2010, nobody was coming to downtown, nobody. There was nothing going on. We started this, what you're benefiting of, and I'm glad you're benefiting from this. We started this with our, Jill, what did we call that when we were in Shelley's building, the Downtown Summit? And we brought people in, and we promised them this bill of goods. The guy I feel the most guilty for is Dennis McDermott, because this guy invested in downtown because we promised we would bring these buildings. We promised Shelley Gordon would build the 5-story building. We promised that we were going to put these things in place. And so what I want you to try to remember in all of this is that this didn't happen overnight. The David Gallo, the building that's being built right now, started after the second Cardinale, Phil Cardinale 2.0. After we won the election in 2011, we interviewed every single downtown developer, both on Long Island and off Long Island, to come here. Nobody was coming, folks. Nobody was coming. And through a lot of interviews, we got David Gallo. Then we got Mr. Munchnick, who I think is going to speak to you. And then Larry Oxman should talk about how hard it was to get conifer. I mean, I had to step in. Jill Lewis and my office had to step in because we were not the folks doing the site plan review, and the planning board was giving them a whole hard time. So you've got a downtown that is starting to become exciting. Don't hold it back, because if you look at Patchogue, we're not similar to Southampton or East Hampton. We don't have the deep water port of Port Jefferson. The village that we are similar to is only one. We're not similar to Greenport. It's Patchogue. That's the village that we are similar to. And so if you look at the economics, if you look at the demographics, if you look at the Sweezy family and the Knapp family, Patchogue and Riverhead grew up together. And there was a big difference between Patchogue and Riverhead. In 2004, Phil Cardinale took office, and in 2004, Paul Pontieri took office. And Phil Cardinale did something that other downtowns have done, and they thought this was a great idea. They went and looked for a master developer, and the master developer was going to be this silver bullet that was going to solve all our problems. And Paul Pontieri did what I've kind of coined as store by store, block by block. Paul Pontieri took office the same year as Phil. And what he did is he looked for projects and he dragged them in. and then he got a project. He stole a project from us. He stole all right, Jill, what's the art space? He stole art space from us. You know how he stole art space from us? The town of Riverhead was giving him such a hard time that he sent flowers to the principal of art space and got them to come to talk to him. And he stole it from us, much like Greenport stole the Ferris wheel. So what I'm saying to you is, Mr. Petroselli's in the audience, or he was. Mr. Bissett, when he was building the Hyatt, folks, it's tough to finance these things. They put millions of dollars of their own money and built the Hyatt on they had a concrete foundation permit. They did not have site plan approval. And I stood in that foundation with Bank of America people telling them, oh yeah, we can do that. Oh yeah, we'll get that approved. Oh yeah. They didn't have financing. If that had gone the wrong way, you might have had a 5-story concrete foundation with no Hyatt. So my point is, I applaud you. Richard, listen, I like brick. When Conifer and everybody came, I'm like, I like red brick, make everything red brick. Richard Wines was the one that proved to me that, yeah, Sean, everything can't just be red brick and flat. Let Richard Wines do what he does. I know you're not talking about development rights anymore. Please do not try to put development rights as a prerequisite. You'll never get anything. The economics of downtowns don't work. People need places to live. I caution you, don't do anything over on Middle Road in Harrison. Your economic development for your housing, for your not your low income, for your children should be on main streets. But understand that everything you do here impacts what a bank is looking at. And you can take Richard Wines, he's very good at what he does.
And he volunteers, he doesn't cost us anything.
Yeah, he's free. And you can take a 5-story, straight up concrete brick building and put Richard Wines to work. He convinced me, and I sat in a meeting, and David Gallo's project is completely different from what it would have been because of Richard Wines. But if you do what you're doing here, the banks are going to look at this and say, we're not going to finance. And if they don't finance, you're not going to get more projects. I noticed that most of the projects you have are projects, some may happen and some won't.
And the projects that we do have are very heavily funded.
Heavily funded?
Heavily funded. We have not had any market rate come in here, under the current zoning that we have.
But that's not going to make a difference, Laura. That's not going to make a difference because here's the thing. The market rate apartments that you're getting, or excuse me, the apartments that you're getting right now are pretty much close to market rate for what you're getting. My recommendation to you, let the zoning stay in place so that these things can be funded, because otherwise things are not coming. I'm pretty certain of that. And then talk to Jim Wooten. He had an idea. Patchogue, I'm going to leave you with this. Patchogue has 770 units. We have, after Gallo is built, maybe you have 200. Jeff Murphy is, these are all projections, but they're not correct. You have 50 in Summerwind, you have 50 in Conifer, you have 20 in the Woolworth building, so you have 120 apartments.
And we have 116 under construction.
Exactly, so now, then you're gonna have 340. You're starting to
and
get.
What value do the blighted buildings have?
So you're starting
Sean, I'm just gonna ask you, what value do the blighted buildings have if you do that?
Oh, the blighted buildings have tremendous value because the foot traffic is what they need. Look at Patchogue. Go to Patchogue, 770 apartments. Those people shop and hang out down there. They're looking for the city vibe. I understand a lot of people here are not interested in the city vibe. They're looking for the city vibe.
I think people are interested in the balance.
So
I think that is a balance in the build out.
It's a great balance, and if you listen to Jim Wooten, what he was telling me all along, what you need to do to put the final icing on the cake for downtown Riverhead, extend the DC1 back in second and third, well, not DC1, but a form of DC on 2nd and 3rd Street, so people can start buying up those small houses that are dilapidated and put in townhouses. You have to, Patchogue is your model. There is no other model.
I think
And-
Riverhead is our model. I think we
I-
should be charting our own course. We are a town, and we're, you
Laura,
know.
I'm not running against you.
No,
I'm never
but-
running against you.
but
I
I'm
wish
just-
you the best.
But
of
I'm
luck.
just saying, Sean.
God bless.
Thank you.
God bless you all.
Thank you for joining us here.
You chart your course
Aye.
based on what's proven.
John Cullen. Does the town have any plans to go with a double parking lot, level parking lot in the future?
Well, I mean, obviously, that is, you know, how do you solve things in the long run? When we're looking at our parking studies right now, what we're finding is that it's not as much as that we don't have enough parking. The way it's utilized is probably incorrect with the signages, whether it's 2 hours, 4 hours, 3 hours, overnight, that kind of thing. So I think that would be the first way to implement something, to get that sorted out first, and then see how that works, because you know, it's not, we're not gonna get a parking garage within a year. You know, there's not really a call for it at this point within a year. But certainly as we see other towns, as they grow, then there tends to be a need for the structured parking. So it's definitely not off the table, but I think the first step in evaluating our parking is to sign it correctly and utilize what we have.
With the,
As well as having residents, when they come in, provide parking for their residents, so
the
we're not
reason I say
supplementing
that
it.
is, with the new buildings going up, are we talking about 350 new units? So, where am I pointing to? Yes?
Says application pending, those are the new ones coming in.
What's the full number, Jeff?
It'd be 509 for total apartments coming?
Proposed,
I mean,
and also,
We have about 130 currently.
about okay.
That's 170 just for, Rushnick's project, Suffolk Theater is 28, another 9.
Riverview
Thank
is
you.
the park committee there.
The reason I'm saying that is I rarely come to town for dinner now. And the reason is because I come to town and I can't find a parking spot. And I'm inviting people to come to town and they can't find parking spots. So now we don't come to town because there's just no parking, unfortunately.
And I think there's not gonna be any one solution to fix it. I think there's gotta be a bunch of combinations. We need better signage so you know where you can park. There's actually parking downtown that is underutilized because people don't realize there's an opportunity to park there.
And when the theater's in business, obviously, there's a lot of people coming in and taking all those spots, like behind the gymnasium that was spoken about earlier. I mean, I drove by, the corner of the Dark Star, Dark Night restaurant the other day.
Dark Horse.
Dark Horse at 7 o'clock at night on Tuesday,
something.
one table was being set in. That is gotta be a horror show for people that want to go into town and find a parking spot and then find out that you have to park down by Woolworths to get to the Dark Horse. People aren't gonna do it, especially with weather like tonight. And that's one of the situations that I find that's slowing me down from coming down to downtown.
Oh, yeah, you don't want to.
And we don't disagree with you, John, and I think some of the studies recommended some lower level parking garages strategically placed. So that's definitely something that we have to look at down the road, but, I think as other people said, first we're gonna look at what this, in the immediate, and we're gonna look at this study and what it recommends for us.
But parking garages cost about $35,000 a parking space to build. So now, we have the parking studies, but you couldn't get grant money unless you had a parking problem. So you have to show that you have a parking problem, and then there's
The
grant
parking
money
problem's
out there.
there and it's been there for a while.
Understood. So the parking problem is there, now we can apply for those grant studies. That's why we're doing the parking study, because the parking study will tell us where the best location is to build a parking garage, and then we can actually go for grant money and build one, so that we can create more parking. And then, I love the idea of the public space on the north side, on the riverside. I know Larry Oxman's been talking about it for years, about just carving it out and making a giant marina there, but now we're talking about green space and a giant square there where the parking lot is on the north side between the building, on the south side between the buildings and the river. So, and then the parking on the north side with a frontage road that goes to the buildings so that people can drop somebody off that may have a cane or a walker, and they can go into the building, or deliveries can go on a service road to the back of those buildings. So All of that stuff is good stuff, that's part of what we're talking about. And the parking is definitely one of them, and once we get the draft parking plan, then we can start applying for grant money. And once we get the signs to start showing people where they can park, where people aren't parking, and we can start changing the times as far as where you can park, so that the people that are living in the apartments have to park further away than the people that are going to the restaurants. So things like that are part of this parking study that we've undertaken.
And a downtown isn't a downtown without a commercial and retail district. I mean, that's, you know, yeah, there is the balance that you need mixed use, so you have housing, you have that foot traffic, but you can't lose sight of the fact that a downtown is commercial and retail, and you have to be able to park and access these things and patronize these places, and we are not losing sight of that.
If you can't find a place to park, you're not gonna have any foot traffic, unfortunately.
Agreed.
And if you do go with a double level or a garage or anything like that, Richard Wines, I'm sure, would be happy to help you with some red brick, or just to make it look nicer than a
There's much
piece of
more
concrete.
attractive garages nowadays.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Good evening, Martin Sinlewski, Riverhead. First off, thanks for Ken and the TDR idea. That's
Well, it was, you know, you had to start with it, with what the study said in the beginning, you put it all in there, and then you know, this is about listening to the community to figure out what to do as we move forward.
couple of things. One is you're going to have to, when you make a revision to the code, you're going to have a determination as to how you're going to handle current applications. You know, there's been a lot of investment put into the current application so far, and if you were to change the code and not change the code for, you know, newly submitted projects as opposed to projects that are pending, which I think should happen, because there's a lot invested with those projects, and it would be truly unfair to make them go back to square one and start over. Also, in all of this, you really have to look at what the 500 unit cap is all about, because I've heard that it was a cap, but then I heard that it's not a cap.
It's in the code, there's a
Okay,
cap of
it is a
five,
cap.
there is a cap in the code.
If
of
that's the
500.
case, we're just about there, so
Well,
obviously.
yeah.
But there's other things that happen downtown. It's not just apartments. When you get into a more revitalized walkable community, then people start opening upper level offices and other things start to happen, and then the downtown gets very vibrant. Probably a lot like some of the pictures of some of the mixed use photographs that Jeff had on his presentation. So there are other things that are going to happen, and we're not there yet. I mean, we're not there yet, but we're getting there. With that said, I would hate to see you cut back too drastically. As you know, I'm part of a downtown owners group. A lot of people don't want anything cut back at all, because we're talking about what's existing. But I personally get it. I'm not speaking for anybody. I personally get it. I'm not speaking on behalf of any group. What Jeff had mentioned was possibly going down to 4 stories, which is a 20% reduction in the downtown area. I think the FAR of 2.5 is low. I think if you reduce the FAR down to 20% also, that would be a FAR of 3.2 versus 2.5. However, I don't think, talking about form-based zoning, I think what you got to do is you got to start striking a balance between height, FAR, volume, etc. I don't think you need to go from 60 feet down to a lower height. I think if you handle it with FAR and you lower the FAR, let's say to say 3.2 by 20%, that would allow a 5-story building to have a 80% footprint on the first floor, which is 20% open space on street level. And then if you went to 60% on the upper levels, so now you got 40% of the lot area on the upper levels stacked to one portion of the site, much like the chart that Jeff had when he showed the different FAR stacked up. If that was 0.6 and 0.8 on the first floor, but you still allowed the 60 feet, that would be an FAR of 3.2. If somebody was allowed to do an FAR 0.8 on the first 2 levels, similar to what was projected with some of the older downtowns where you had the 2 stories, if you had the 2 levels, then you could still go to 0.6, 0.6, and then do really high-end units on the upper level or high-end offices of 2.8, also get you FAR 3.2. So what happens is
you're getting variety, you're getting what you want, you're getting less volume, you're getting setbacks and all that, but do it through FAR, not as much through height. The height right now is not the issue, it's the bulk and the volume. So that's really, I think, what you should try to.
You're taking from an FAR of 5 starting, not a 4 though.
Well, the 5 was only with the TDR, which was
No,
never
I
adopted.
know, but if you have 80, you said 80, 60, 60, 60, you're going 60 all the way up? I don't think you don't, is that 3.2 at the end?
Yeah, 3.2, correct. That's at 5 levels.
Oh, because you're at 5, not 4,
Right,
okay.
That's what I'm saying. The height is really not the issue. It's volume.
Well, the height is the issue for a lot of people, so we can't.
Well,
yeah.
but it's the height's the issue because they see the big buildings and they think they're big buildings because they're tall. Tall buildings don't have to be big buildings, okay? What I mean by that is big in terms of scale and in terms of bulk. As Sean had mentioned, Richard Wines, and what Richard has looked at with a number of projects. It doesn't now, does everybody agree with the bulk of all the buildings? No, but if you want to reduce it, I get it. So that's a reduction. Right now, the upper levels are all 0.8. So you can go, you could do a block all the way up. If you reduce that, but not an arbitrary 15-foot dimension or whatever, but if you do it by FAR.
I don't think, Jeff, that's on the table anymore.
If you do it by FAR, I think that could be very workable. And next, I just want to touch base on, a lot of people are talking about parking. I'm on the Parking Advisory Committee. The study, we had a meeting actually last Thursday, was our regular meeting. And we didn't receive yet a copy of the, it's not really a study, it's really more of a utilization review. We don't have a copy yet, we expect to have it very shortly, but we touched on some of the highlights of it. Right now, according to their review, and this is based on field review, downtown Riverhead at its peak every day is using less than 60% of the available parking in downtown. 60%. Let us know where that is. I will. I will. I parked, okay, on the lot across the street from Suffolk County National Bank. I still call it Suffolk County National. I took a picture of my car right by the sign. I had that parking spot all to myself yesterday and today, the only car.
Well,
okay?
This is why I think that, and part of the parking utilization plan is for the sign and to be able to direct people to the parking, allow the parking, where people want to go use the commercial district, easier access to the commercial to help for the businesses.
You talk about
that's, it's utilizing what you have in the most productive way, and that's not being done right now.
Correct.
And that being said, that's why some lots are full, throughout the day for people that are maybe not be using the commercial and the retail spaces, but going to a full day's worth of work.
Correct.
So
And that's enforcement too, which is
It
what
is.
we've stepped up. The police officers are now writing tickets for somebody that's parked in a zone for more than an hour when it's 1 hour parking.
One of the things about a walkable downtown is you walk a little bit, okay? It took me a minute and 15 and 15 seconds to be in front of my office on Roanoke, and it took me 3 minutes and 15 seconds to be at the corner of Roanoke Avenue and Main Street from that parking lot, okay? Which is not a big deal. Now, I'm also going to throw somebody under the bus. I'm not going to name any names, okay? But I was getting my hair cut, and I was talking to my barber, and he was talking about how hard the parking is downtown. And his customers drive around the block, and they can't find a spot, and I can't find a spot. And I said, well, a lot of it's utilization. I said, where did you park your car today? He goes, well, right in the back. I said, well, then shut up. He goes, well, what should I do? I said, park up by the parking lot where I had my car. He goes, you mean you want me to park up there and walk down? Yeah, and then the people that you want to do business with have parking spaces. I also think I'm part owner of Summerwind, and I mentioned this to the town before. If you had parking stickers for residents downtown, and I don't mean stickers that allow them to park, stickers they're required to have that restrict where they can park and make the residents park in areas a little bit more remote during the day, at night and overnight. In the late hours, they can park closer to their apartments. That's very important. Lastly, you talked about things that you can do and you can't do. And I'm actually really pleased that there's a lot of people here today, and there's a lot of people that are talking about the character of downtown and what they don't want and all this other stuff, okay? Well, if that's the case, I guess all of those taxpayers would not have any issue with ponying up money if you decided to take across from Suffolk Theater, the 2 buildings that Shelley owns, possibly the Sweezy's building and maybe the West Marine building, condemn all those properties tomorrow, okay, and buy them, and knock them all down and have a nice open space where we could then put the skate park that was proposed probably 10 years ago. We could have like little boutiques that the town could lease and get rent from, sort of like a Bryant Park type of a thing, and you'd have nice open space. So now that all the residents want it more open, condemn those properties. Condemn them, buy them, knock them down, open it up, and there's part of your nice downtown.
You're talking
And
about
that will strike a
$30
nice
million
balance with some of the
probably
other projects in the
by the time you
larger
get through the
buildings downtown.
condemnation.
So, I mean, if that's the case,
that
let's
the
do it.
taxpayers would have to pay. 30 million is what you're talking about by the time you get through a
Well,
condemnation
You
proceeding.
know, I mean, it's a good investment. Why not? And it seems like nobody would object to it if you were to
What?
do it.
It's a 4% tax increase for every $1 million.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Rob Muchnick. Okay. I'm the developer of the project, former Sears site, as you all know. I was actually originally looking at a site on Route 58, and Sean overheard me speaking to Jeff in the hallway, and he said, "Come on into my office," and he said, "Don't build over there. Come downtown. Just go by the code. You can build a 5-story building. You don't need any variances. We'll work with you." So I did. So I negotiated with Shelley, as took quite some time, and yeah, chuckles, yes, okay. And I put in my application 23 months ago, and I'm working on it, and right now I have some new partners, and we're ready to go market rate. We're ready to be the first building in downtown to have market rate units. I heard people say, you need foot traffic, you need people to shop, you need a place to live for young professionals, and they get kicked out because they have forced overtime. Well, and I heard people talk about Patchogue had a great revitalization. Yes, it does. My office is in Patchogue, and when I moved there in '91, it was terrible, and now it's fantastic. But Patchogue has 60% of their units are market rate and 40% are affordable. 100% of the units here are quote-unquote workforce, 100%. You know, market rate units provide 50% more positive economic impact with no additional parking than workforce units. And we're very happy to work with the town, and as it was pointed out that, you know, if you work with the architecture, you can soften up the building. We can definitely do that. The issue is we need a certain number of units. We need our number of units, and we can work with you to soften up the architecture. We can step back the 5th floor. I don't see how we're going to do this without a significant part of a 5th floor. You know, maybe we don't need 60 feet right on Main Street, and it's actually 55 on Main Street and 65 in the back, Jeff. If we're averaging it, it's 55. But you know, we can cut it down on Main Street, and we can push it back 25 feet. We can do the step back 25 feet, something like that. We can work with you. We can soften up the facade, have some ins and outs, can make it very attractive. But we need our density. That's really what it is. And if you want the economic impact, there's really no way around it. And this whole discussion is really about my project, because after my project, there's no more room.
Well, that's not true. The discussion is about the size of the buildings. If the buildings, less density in each one of the spots, there is actually more room for more projects.
Right, but if...
I'm just pointing that out.
Mine is far and away the biggest site. It's in the heart of downtown. It's next to a 5-story building. It's down the block from a 5-story building on one side. It's down the block from a 5-story building on the other side. And if I get my 170, you're pushing 500 already. There's no more big buildings. That's it. No one's going to build a 5-story narrow building. And the other problems we have over there in the development, aside from the high land cost, are you have a lot of, you have very soft dirt, and Dave Gallo had to spend a couple $1 million extra on site work because of the soft dirt. He had to drill, his pilings had to go down twice as far, he had to do dewatering. You know, so we're very constrained, and we want to give you, we want to give you a beautiful project that you'll be proud of to have in downtown that will really help the economic activity and help revitalize downtown. And I think we can get there. You know, you just have to let us do it and tell us give us some clear guidance. That's really what we need. We can tell you what we can do, and you say if it's good enough. We've redesigned the building 5 times already, and I'll do number 6. But we got to get our density. That's really the issue. And when it comes time to parking,
But
obviously.
the code hasn't changed during those 5 times you redid it. The code stayed the same.
I understand, but I've heard different things from different people, suggestions, some louder than others. And, no, we're not going workforce anymore. But when you go market rate, there's going to be a $20 million investment of private capital in this building. There has to be enough of a return, or else people aren't going to do it. You know, you go workforce, and the investment is much lower to 0. We're going on the limb here and investing in Riverhead, investing in you people, and we're happy to do it. We don't see any other market rate buildings anywhere on the East End, from Patchogue, Port Jeff, and out. So we're ready to be the first ones to be, and we would just like a little guidance and a little pat on the back and say, okay, let's do it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Peggy Ehlers from Riverhead. I'm a maker, designer, artist here in downtown, and for the past, I've lived in Riverhead over 30 years. I grew up in Greenport, so I'm kind of a lifer. So as a artist downtown, with all of the comments tonight about parking and about different things, the parking at any given time in downtown is really pretty good. On the street, no, but of course your codes have given us a 2-hour window for parking, and I've gotten many tickets, so I park in the back. But the one thing I'd like to say is that I did a feasibility study back in 1998, and I thought maybe these statistics would help people. So it was for a project I was working on for the East End, and all of my information came from Ag and Markets and from Farm Bureau. And it stated that within a 75-mile road trip of Riverhead, north and south and east and west, and over to Connecticut, the average consumer makes $50,000 or more per year, and there's 17 million of them. So therefore, the consumer is what we're looking for. Fast forward to 2019, I am part of the Riverhead Farmers Market, which is now in the Rimlands building, which is incredible. It's southern exposure, it's center of town, and incredible parking in the back with a back entrance for all the vendors. Less than 1% of the people who show up on Saturdays are local. Everyone who comes there is from a 50-mile radius, either out to Greenport or into Huntington, okay? And there's one thing that they're doing very well. They are spending money at the farmers market. We are all making a living, and it's spectacular. Now, when we talk about downtown, the only way that you're gonna have foot traffic is if you have housing, both workforce and luxury, that will create an atmosphere where people don't get in their cars and drive. Then that fosters your retail establishments. I'm one of them. I really have studied downtown for the past 5 years, and I find it to be an incredible thing. I also owned a studio back in 1989 through 94, and everyone told me I was crazy. But I saw the beauty, and I renovated the upstairs of Papa Nick's back to its authenticity from the 1950s. So we have all the elements. They're here. We also have the spur of the railroad that's going to come flying through here that maybe no one's talking about at Grumman. We have the Jitney that's invested millions of dollars on the Edwards Avenue corridor. Why? Because of its access to the expressway. Those are consumers that want to spend time and money in Riverhead. I've been told by realtors that the $300,000 eyesores here in town for housing are almost all gone, and that you can't get into Riverhead for under $500,000. So I don't know, I'm just giving you statistical information as we go forward. I really don't speak at these things, but what I've said, I actually did a podcast at RIV, and this has been my sentiment since '98, and that is this. With our current food supply, and as we know from farmers and purveyors, you know, all over the country, and it's just my view from statistical information, and I'm a creative person, but Riverhead is poised, really funny, to be the Napa Valley of the Northeast.
Right.
And so all of our complaints about parking, really, people, really, the schools are great. I'm sorry, I'm crying. I get like this sometimes, but the schools are great. Our kids get free rides to college. The sports are great. The ethnicity is fantastic, okay? I mean, it's a 75-mile road trip, and they're here. I mean, I'm a designer and maker, and I mean, I'm a want, I'm not a need when it comes to markets. And I'm telling you, I'm making a living there, and I mean with gusto, and not one local person supports it, not one. I mean, you guys come, but I'm saying as we.
I was gonna say, come on.
But I'm saying, but look, you know, I'm really being straight up here, you know, because it just, you know, I don't go to many of these things, but if people would just understand from a business perspective, and I'm a product development and branding junkie, because it's what I used to do in New York for all the Fortune 5s. So.
All right, so you're gonna be on the marketing subcommittee.
I don't know.
You
But
just
what
volunteered yourself.
But what I'm saying is that there, and I say this often, and I say it to my market mates, I look for the consumer. They're here. I mean, Friars Head Golf Course is here.
Well, you see the forest from here.
Okay, you can't get in there for under $500,000. I don't know what the dues are every day, every year. It's okay, so you do that, but we have all the elements, and not only that, outside of Riverhead, you cannot drive, people. You cannot drive. All 3 arteries are done. Greenport, you know, when we talk about parking, you can't get there. You can't get there. So why is Riverhead great? Because we're at the end of the expressway, 2-hour drive to the city, right on a major 495 expressway, okay? We have access to airports. The spur for the railroad is coming at the back end of Grumman. People are moving here. Our schools are great. Our kids go to college. Our sports are wonderful. And instead of, I guess the thing for me is, instead of looking at the things you don't like, or that you don't want to change, you have to look at the positive, because it's really, I'm telling you, it's the Napa Valley of the Northeast. I'm telling you now. And that's how I feel.
Thank you.
There you go.
And Peggy, I love the point that you make, that we so often downplay all of our great assets in Riverhead.
Well, thank you, but you're one of them, you know, you're my kid's teacher.
Thanks, Peggy.
I just forgot to mention 1 or 2 quick things. So because we're market rate, obviously none of the tenants would be forced to leave if they start making too much money. And as Ike has told me, sitting there very quietly in the front row, he's told me we're going to get at least 40 residents and nurses from the hospital to come to our building, because they make too much money to go to the other buildings. So they have no place to live, and now they will. Then I was invited by Diane to a Business Improvement District meeting, and I came down and told them who I was, and there were about 15 business owners. Every single one of them said, you're going market rate, we support you 100% on a 5-story building. And every single one of them supported me. They really just wanted a market rate building to help the businesses out in downtown. There you go. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Connie Lissandro, and I am a resident of Bating Hollow. And for the record, I am a consultant for the Riverview Lofts, Dave Gallo. And I am the one that introduced him to Riverhead because I saw potential in our town. I brought him into Sean Walters 7 years ago. And it's taken 7 years ago to start this development. It hasn't been easy, it's still not easy. There's a lot of unhidden, I guess, problems you want to say, or unexpected things that it's taken to build this development. The infrastructure that he is investing in the town of Riverhead is significant, with this putting in a sewer line, new water line. In fact, Mr. Munchnick will benefit from our water line because he'll be able to tap into it. And the misconception that he is having this development subsidized is really wrong. It is a public-private partnership.
Correct, but there is public money in it also, correct?
There's public money in it, yes. I would say probably roughly around 20, probably a little high, but let's say 25 million. But
No,
he's
about
also,
half, right? 50-50
he's got
public
20 million of private dollars into this development. I can't, there's not that many developers that are gonna come and invest $45 million in downtown Riverhead. I brought many in to this town, and many of them they all walked away except him. We do, for the record, have market rate. We have about 30 units of market rate. And our market rate, we tried to be very fair. We went at 90% of the area median income and 130% of the area median income. And to give you an idea, the rents for a 2-bedroom, I'm just gonna use a 2-bedroom, at 90 and 130 is $1,650 and $1,950. So that is affordable for even on a market rate. You know, to bring market at 1 bedroom at $2,300 or a 2-bedroom at $3,000 in the town of Riverhead, I've been doing housing for over 40 years, and I can tell you that's steep for Riverhead. I've done some studying. I hope it happens. I think that would be fantastic. But I don't know that we're ready for that level of rent in Riverhead.
Connie,
Hey,
what's this?
I hope I'm proven wrong.
What is the size of the apartment that's the 16?
Pardon?
What is the square footage of that apartment, the 16?
The 2? It is, the 2-bedroom.
1,200, I thought.
I don't know if I have that with me. Well, there's 7 of them, so figure, well, 7. But I would say maybe, I really don't want to say it and
If
be
you don't know,
wrong.
that, yeah.
You know, I mean, I have it if you need it. You know, I just didn't bring it with me. But, you know, it's not easy to develop. I've always been on the other side of this, and this is the first time that I've really been in the trenches of a developer, and it's not easy. And I just don't think it's fair to say that, you know, they're coming in and then just, they're looking to make a buck. Yeah, they're looking to make a buck.
If you're a developer, I mean, nobody's begrudging somebody coming in and as a developer and putting a project in and you know, making an income off of it. I don't think anybody, I mean, we don't want somebody that's not gonna be able to do that. We don't want somebody to come in and not be able to take care of the building or not be able to do the building. So that was not the intention of saying this.
You know, and not for anything, I mean, I think everybody needs to take a step back. I mean, this is the first really big building that is being constructed in downtown. Let's see what it looks like.
Peconic Crossing is also Summer Wind is a large
is.
building.
They are,
both, and
but
this
this
lot is a little bigger.
takes, but I think, Laura, because it's so long along McDermott and everybody thinks, oh, this is like a massive thing. And God knows we went through a lot of renderings with Landmark and ARB, and, you know, we respected their opinions and we tried to be very accommodating, and I think Dave was. And I think you need to wait, see what it's gonna look like, see what impact it's gonna have on our town. And do I think changes have to be made? Absolutely. And do I wanna see the whole Main Street 5 stories? No. It really, I don't think it'd be appealing at all. But I think we, you know, 1 or 2, possibly 3 is fine. You do need foot traffic. Do I think Riverhead's gonna be a place where people are gonna come and shop in little boutiques and what have you? No, I think that's a thing of the past. Only because I saw this happen in the city of Glen Cove, where everybody in the 70s was pulling everybody out of the downtowns. They didn't want anybody living, we were relocating them. And deja vu, we're putting people back down in the downtowns because we need it.
Different generation.
You know, so I just think, you know, take a deep breath. I think some of what you're doing, I think is commendable, and it should be done. But I don't think just to stop track everything right now.
Well, we're not stop tracking anything,
Okay.
and that's why we're doing it in this forum, because, you know, I've heard the word moratorium put out there and things like that, and we're not interested in doing that. You know, we want a revitalized downtown, and that's why we're doing this, and that's why we're continuing to move forward with this, and we're not putting a moratorium in place because we want people to come here, we want people to develop here, we want to work with people that want to develop here, and get a nice balance for a downtown. And it's a downtown, if the downtown thrives and survives, that also has those market rate apartments and all of those other apartments become more attractive for people because they want to be here because of the other things that are going on. So there's a balance between all of this that we're trying to strike. And a lot of the studies that have been conducted, you know, kind of have taken and looked at the zoning that we have in place and say, you know, in the long run, and for revitalization, it probably is not the best way to go. And what do we do know is that all the other towns around us who started to revitalize at the same time are much further ahead of us than that. And why is that? You know, and the studies are telling us, go back and look at your zoning. This is one of the potential areas that you need to take a look at. And that's what we're doing, and that's why we're all here. So.
And I will say that, you know, the numbers didn't work without the density. They just don't when you have a mixed developments like this.
And when the properties are priced for 5 stories.
And
if you have a
the
property that can only develop 3 stories, it's priced for 3 stories.
And the price of the land in downtown is
because it's
out
priced
of
at
sight.
5
It's
stories.
ridiculous. It's greed and what have you. And there aren't that many developers that would have stuck with this for so long. I told him at one point, walk away, you know. But, you know, he's committed to Riverhead. He loves it. I mean, he brings his family out here on weekends. He loves the aquarium with his kids. He comes out here. He lives in Port Washington. He comes out here to have dinner. You know, so he's committed to the town of Riverhead, and, you know, I'm glad because, I mean, I somewhat feel responsible. I brought him here, and I certainly want to see, you know, this building thrive and be a complement to downtown, not a eyesore. And I think you're going to all be very pleasantly surprised. We've got people in there designing. The amenities are going to be beautiful. He's going to have a 24-hour door service. It's not going to be, you know, where people can come in and out. So he's trying to really upscale it. And I just think everybody should take, like I said, a deep breath, and let's see how it works out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I certainly don't think we can blame a developer for building what the code allows, though.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what the code allows.
Hello everyone, Nancy. I am a resident of Riverhead. I'm also on the Blue Duck Bakery. As a business owner, we are excited for progress in town. We've been here for almost 7 years waiting for the boom to happen. So we are excited to see some projects. Again, I certainly don't want to see 5-story buildings, make a canyon down Main Street. But what I really want to say today is this. The projects are going on, they're taking time. We're looking 2 years ahead before these things come to fruition. And there are those of us downtown who own businesses, Cherie, Steve. I see a lot of my customers here, And then when I hear that people circle the block and they won't go to Bruick Bakery, my heart goes boom. It's challenging downtown. We know that people find problems parking. There is parking. You might have to walk a little bit. But please support us. I'm dealing with the construction of the Gallo Apartments, which took away a 50-lot parking spot right there by my store. And I've had to find a different place to park. My employees have to find a different place to park. But please don't give up on us. We are your downtown now. We're the businesses that are there now. And if you don't support us 100%, we won't be there when these apartments come up. And I ask you this, who's gonna rent an apartment when the entire town is empty? So please, during the time of all this discussion and the back and forth and the businesses, even if they break ground tomorrow, there's not an apartment that's gonna be around for another 2 years. I might not be here another 2 years. I'm here for the grace of my beautiful landlords, Rich and Ike. And I thank them very much for believing in us. So please, if you love your downtown, believe in us now. Thank you.
Don't bake your banana bread, go to Blue Duck and get your banana bread.
I just have to say that while the weather's so freezing, you need to go in the Blue Duck and get her soup. But that little section of stores is a great example of what could be done. I love that little section there, and, you know, I actually think obviously we need residential, but also I still think little shops work. I have to disagree with you on that, Connie. I still think little shops work.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
How are you?
Good.
I think it's a great turnout tonight, and I think that everyone's here because we're all supporters of downtown Riverhead, which is a great thing. I think I'm just trying to understand what the town board's objectives are. Are they looking to reduce density? Are we looking to fix the aesthetics of buildings? Or are we trying to fix parking? So we're all gathered in a room trying to figure a solution, but we don't understand the goals of the town board.
It's all of those issues need to be addressed. For this evening, we're trying to just get a feeling whether people are looking to reduce the height of the buildings. Right now, we have 5 stories. We want to see if there is a will to want to reduce them to 4 stories. So that's really the objective of this evening.
But I'm sorry to interrupt, but if the current zoning only allows, so I hear about like no more apartments.
I don't think there's definitely not no more apartments. I think it's a balance of the size of the apartment buildings
But
coming in.
generally, that's where you're gonna get on your 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th story buildings. You're not getting a bunch of office spaces.
No, residential.
So if those numbers are accurate and the master plan calls for 500 apartments, you've really seen the height that you're going to see, because who else is developing 5-story office buildings? I don't think you're going to see that in downtown Riverhead.
Well, I think we're looking to spread it all out, too.
How?
I mean, we're talking,
if you've met your
Marty
goal-
actually talked about how good it is to walk. How great would it be to have some apartments over across the street from the train station? I mean, when we show people around town, we'll walk the whole downtown.
No, I
and
get it,
is
but
a-
I just
it
thought we're
is a
dealing with
quick walk.
DC1 zoning.
We are
I
dealing
know.
with DC1
We don't want it
zoning.
all right in the DC1.
But these projects have not received any approval yet. So the only apartments that we have right now that have approval, I don't have my glasses on, but are.
No, I know which ones they are. They say application pending.
Right.
But
Well, application pending is not approved. Some of them
No, I
don't
know.
even have complete applications in. Some of those applications have been sitting there for 10 years.
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, I know you do, know all that.
I'm just.
But the other point is that 500 is an arbitrary number without.
It's not arbitrary, because the master plan says
Uh, mas-
500's the max.
No, the master plan did not say.
So you said that earlier.
No, there is, in the zoning code, there is a limit of 500, but that is a number that was put in there. There's, why is that 500 number in there? We can't find out who put that in there, where it came from. It's an arbitrary number that is in there at this particular moment.
She's looking at Barbara.
No, I'm not looking at Barbara.
But-
Only because we worked on it together, so I just.
And that number does have the potential to go away at some point. That being said, you could end up with more 5-story buildings down there, and is that the concentration of tall buildings and smaller buildings in the small DC1 area what you want? And then, or would you prefer to have lower buildings, spread out more, and then it also encourages the redevelopment of the blighted and empty buildings down there, because because right now, the way this is set up, none of those blighted buildings would retain, you know, who was gonna invest in those then?
I don't have the answer.
But that's what
that's why you're the town board member.
Right, but that's why we're discussing this.
But the only thing is that I think what happens a lot of times when these discussions happen, you have people that have made investments in downtown and people that are looking to make investments in downtown, and uncertainty is the one thing that does not help anybody.
I don't think, but, I mean, I've spoken to a lot of developers since I came into office, and I think I've been pretty clear with everybody that they ask me, what do I think? I would like to see 4-story buildings. I'm very clear on that. I don't think I've waffled on that since, you know, before I got elected. So I don't think that is, you know, arbitrary. And
Like I said, I think everyone here is team downtown. I think that's clear. I just think that it would be easier to comment on something if we knew the direction the town board was actually looking to go forward with. If you're looking to address parking, let's say, hey, what's the limit in parking? Or what's the limit, if you just want to deal with heights, let's deal with heights. I'm not
But that's why we're
sure.
having the community forum, to see what the community has to say. We've been discussing what we think, you know, in the past couple work sessions, and it was actually from the community, and Marty was involved in that, and he said, well, you know, we would like to speak to, we would like to voice our opinion, say what we want, what we would like to see also, so that when the board is discussing it further, we have that information. So that's really part of the
understand.
goal of this also, is that we can have that
Where are
information.
the wayfinding signs? That's what I
The
want.
wayfinding signs have not come because the contract has not been signed by the county yet. Yes, I know. The
'Cause
wheels
I
move
think
slow.
that will help a lot,
I believe
honestly,
so,
to
too.
help people know where to park and where different things are, and I wish you all luck, obviously.
Thank you.
Well, Jill, just to let you know,
Yeah.
we're on a listening tour, really, where we talked to the ARB, we talked to the landmarks, we've, spoken with the business owners, the Downtown Revitalization Committee, and tonight's an opportunity
For the public to
to
speak.
speak. So, you know, we're taking in all this information, and then, you know, we're formulating.
I know how it works. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Jim.
Hi, my name is Chris Calderon. I live in Calverton. I just had a couple quick questions. The blue area is the DC one, correct?
Yes.
So up there, it's saying that the 500 apartments would be the max.
In DC one, the blue area, just along
What-
Main Street.
What else is allowable on the DC one that would create a 5-story building?
I'm not quite sure of the question.
Saying
Offices
500
on the upper floor.
You're saying
if you-
500.
If your offices,
Right, so if I owned a piece of property downtown and 500 apartments was already built out, and
you could build a 5-story office building as long as you had retail on the first floor. You can't put, offices other than, I think it's attorneys and 2 kinds of professional offices on the first floor. But you could build 5 floors up of offices.
right, has anybody ever proposed a 5-story office building downtown?
We have in, the bank's building is 4 stories. The what's the hospital now?
That's 4, isn't it?
I believe that's, what? No, but you're saying down in
But that's
downtown. And what else
within the
can you build
DC
another-
one, within the
It's not in
DC, has
DC one.
anybody ever come to the town hall to bring an application to put anything other than a residential building within the DC one zone, which is marked in blue?
We have office buildings in some of the pre-existing
All right,
buildings.
but Jimmy's saying no. No one's ever brought that to the
Well,
table.
Georgia, 20 West
20
and 30 West are all,
She's got a lot of vacancies there,
they're,
doesn't she?
they're all office buildings.
Yeah, but nobody came in with an application to build it.
Not
Those are
not new
current, but those,
construction.
right, no
Not
new
con-
building has ever been proposed, right? Because it's probably not feasible, right? From a financial standpoint, it doesn't make any sense. So what we're here discussing tonight is the fact that within the current zoning, you could put 500 apartments. After that, there's nothing more to discuss, other than the fact that you're concerned about other 5-story buildings lining Main Street, but, I mean, maybe it
Hotels.
Right, maybe it makes sense to preclude those things, to take those things out of the zoning. This way we could settle this right here and now. 500 apartments, the rest of the buildings could be retail. The ones that are 1-story could be taken to a 2-story building possibly, and that's the end of the story. It's all over after that. There's nothing more to discuss. Remove the idea of any hotels going
But
downtown.
even if you went to a 2-story, the market would still have to bear a 2-story office building or a story office
Well,
building.
maybe a 2nd-story office building would be okay, but a 5-story, I mean, I don't think anybody lives here in Riverhead was interested in seeing, you know, office buildings lining downtown. It just doesn't even seem like a feasible thing, and over the years, no one's ever brought one in, so it doesn't seem like we're in much danger of anybody bringing that to town. That's gonna invest $20 million, $30, $40 million building office building. It's just not feasible, right? Google didn't come to town, you know, nobody, you know, Amazon's going to Long Island City. I mean, Riverhead's just not suited for it, right? So maybe we could consider leaving hotel zoning in, because maybe another hotel might make sense. I mean, the Preston House is a relatively small building. It's set back from Main Street further. It seems like it fit in pretty well, even though it's not, you know, it's contemporary architecture, so. I mean, that's my suggestion would be, you're already at the limit, basically. Once you approve the 170 units for Munchnick, which, you know, the guy's got 23 months into it. I couldn't imagine pulling the carpet out from underneath the guy. He's got millions of dollars probably invested in it, right? So maybe forget about office buildings, just scratch it off the list. And you're looking at the footprint of Main Street as it is. There's nothing more to talk about, right?
We need more apartments.
About 5 more buildings.
Well,
Five more
somebody-
5-story buildings.
It's interesting, because somebody mentioned Trader Joe's, and I know that in the past, you know, there's been reached out to Trader Joe's and Uncle Giuseppe's, and they're like, the demographics don't work, you don't have enough people in that area that are gonna come.
You know, maybe looking at some of the other districts does make sense, but along the railroad tracks, around the railroad station.
They don't wanna come.
Around Conkama Hub project
place,
is gonna take
they
off
could've come.
because the
Trader Joe's
railroad
said they
station's there, so those types of things maybe make sense, and it doesn't create that density in the downtown that people are concerned about.
Well, that's exactly the point. That's what we're saying, to keep the density a little further away from the
But, I mean,
DC
given
one.
that you have one more project at 170 units to approve, it leaves very little room left for anybody to bring one more building after that's the end of the story.
I think there's about another 4 planned,
Right, but they're small, 20 units, 9 units.
but
Is that-
smaller lots.
Not gonna have much of an impact, though, a 9-unit building. Even a 20-unit building's not gonna have a big impact.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think
And
that's
you know,
what
you talk
were
about open space,
right?
there's an area that's
Saying the other night?
underutilized, in behind the Chase Bank building. The town looks like they spent quite a bit of money trying to raise the grade there, put that little bridge in. There was, used to be a building, it was a mill there, was a mill building there, Jimmy?
Yeah, that was the hardware store.
Right? But that's all been fixed up, right? That whole area, it doesn't seem like people utilize it much. And you know, it's an open space. We're talking about spending all kinds of money to chop up something, make an open space. Yeah.
Grangable, it's actually a 3-acre park.
Right, but
there.
I don't,
We had-
whenever I drive by, hardly ever see anybody using it. It looks like a nice space.
Beautiful.
You know, at one point, there was an RFP Jody put out for that space to take that building and turn it into a hamburger stand or something, wasn't there?
It's on lease now too, if you want.
So Dee's leasing that space and she's gonna develop it into something?
I think you should utilize it, I don't know what you should do.
There's other people that are showing interest that wanna do other things with that building.
Because that's an open space that's underutilized by us, you know?
Well, I think that's part of what we were saying before. It's part of the Downtown Revitalization Committee. I think that it's not just one thing that's going to, you know, help revitalize downtown Riverhead. Part of it is, you know, having events at the parks. They had Reflections there this summer for quite a few weekends. We've had a Live on 25 downtown. So it's drawing people to come downtown to see what we have down there, and you know, in the hopes that they will continue to go down there on a daily basis.
I just think, you know, we should just take a look at the fact that you're just about done with downtown, given that 500 units is the top of it, and that's it, so.
Okay.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
No, you already talked.
I just wanted to mention one more thing. When it comes to the height, again, you need to be very careful. People are talking about apartments, talking about offices, talking about other things. There are other projects that can come to Riverhead that could be very exciting. We have one that's pending now, which is the gallery in downtown, the art gallery. That's all art use, gallery space, high ceilings. It's a 2-story, 45-foot tall gallery, okay? So you gotta be really careful with your heights, because if the zoning is adopted at 4 stories, and I don't know what the number's gonna be, you know, if it's gonna be 40 feet, or if it's 20% less, it should really go down to 48 feet as the height, not 40. You know, when you think of it in terms of the levels. Be careful when you do that, because there are projects that it could drive away that could be very beneficial for downtown. And also, there was one thing that was mentioned that sort of really got me a little nervous, and that was one thing the supervisor said, and that was, well, there were projects pending, but they haven't been approved. That's scary. You need to take a position on people that have spent money and projects that are pending. And let's face it, there's one big project
But Marty,
pending.
you are aware that whenever you have a zone change, there will never be a time when there are 0 projects pending, correct?
That is correct. That is correct. But I'm saying there are currently projects pending now, so that's something, but now that the TDR issue's out of the way, that's another big issue. That's a real big one.
It's an issue that needs to be discussed, absolutely.
And it's gotta be decided pretty quickly. And one of the things that I would caution you on is that if you do take projects that are being planned and you change the zoning on them and those projects become, are no longer, they don't no longer have the return that they need to be market, market units downtown and, gaining vibrance and all that other stuff, if they're not gonna get the return and they go away, you really could put nails in the coffin of downtown's revitalization. So,
And once you have all 5-story buildings up, there's no taking them down either. So I think that's why we're having this community discussion. What is it that the community is looking to see in downtown? I think it's very important that we have these discussions.
I just think in fairness, you may want to really memorialize a position as to existing applications. I mean, this is one, we're not approved yet. And if you adopt the zoning, this gallery, which we've been waiting for years, goes away. And I'm sure some other projects go away, and that's not good. So I would really urge you
That's
to.
one of your projects?
That is,
Yeah.
That's correct. I would really urge you to keep, projects that are currently in site plan review, that have paid their application fees, okay? And keep those projects under the zoning that they were submitted under. I think that's only fair.
Okay. Thank you. Yep. Is there anybody else that would like to?
Jeff said, that the community needs to decide on this. How are you going to hold the community?
Well, this is part of it, and if we need to do some other things, we can do that. We'll have another meeting after this probably, kind of take in what everybody has said, probably try and draft up some of the information that we gathered tonight.
We need to hear back from the different groups such as the downtown committee. We finally heard from Landmarks ARB. I don't know if that was their official response, and then the other committees that are being providing written input. And then once we get all those inputs together, then we have formulated where we're gonna go with them. So the community is not going to be told.
As a survey, we can certainly put a survey out there for people to respond to. That's not a problem. That would be great if people would respond so that we could have more information. We would love that. So we certainly could do that through our office. I think let's just, yep, go ahead.
This 500 unit cap, and one of the areas that you talked about is how do you get, a lot of people have talked about how do you get more people, more going to shops to buy things. And so without more people, but with the 500, since we're approaching that one way or another, whether you reduce the density, take off a story or two, it's not going to be, you're pretty much at 500. And I apologize, I didn't bring my reading glasses to read the fine print about what that applies to. I remember.
To residential units.
I remember when I
But
read.
it's once the CO has been issued, correct? Yep.
So then, I guess, because when I reread it again, I remember I reread it again, it had an asterisk about bed and breakfast, that it applied to 500 units of bed and breakfast when I read the citation. So maybe it was a miscitation or something. I guess I read things very literally. But be that as it may, okay, and I agree with what the other gentleman was saying, is that once we fit 500, nobody's gonna build, if you can't build residential, no more people are gonna be able to live downtown. No one's gonna build office above a story or two, so.
But there's no the 500 number is a number that was decided on, and even with the studies, one of the things that is pointed out in the study, that even when they were doing the study, that 500 number, and that when they went back to the town at that time about the 500 number, was it a hard and fast number? The answer was no.
So what does that actually mean?
That's why it needs to be, up for discussion.
500 today, it might not, there may be more or less 10 years from now, who knows? It's not hard to say.
But it is in the code, right? Is it the code? It's no different than any other provision in the code. Is that right? It is in the code.
It's in
so
the
it's
code,
a hard and
not-
fast.
Absolutely in
It's in the code, not in the master plan.
But not in the master plan.
So it's up to the town
Right.
board if they wanna go over it.
Right.
You're in charge to allow it to go over, but if we've hit our max pretty much from your seeing that program. So what we now see is the balance of downtown will remain as it is. So we're okay. It's only when somebody would go and ask you to increase that code.
Right.
Then maybe these new rules would apply. So they may never apply. So, you know,
It's nice to have this talk.
if you're not looking to stop the projects that exist, which really should never happen because people have invested millions of dollars in your downtown and came, then it's almost moot of what we're talking about. These developers that are still in front of you are willing to step back their buildings, change their motifs, which will stop the canyon approach. And they're willing to do that. So let them do that.
That basically answered me. I'm sort of an outside developer that, you know, I live in Suffolk County. I wanted to come in here because I could see great things happening here. But if, you know, it's kind of like San Francisco. Once you hit 1 million square feet, you know, for that, no more development, you know, which is fine if that's what everybody wants. So if there's no more residential, we just have to just, I mean, that sounds like you want to shut down development for residential downtown. I want to make sure I understand that.
Well, that's effectively what it would do, correct?
Okay.
Well, that's something that needs to be discussed also, because we have the opportunity zone downtown that, you know, there's a lot of people that work very hard to get this opportunity zone where people could invest money in downtown Riverhead and in blighted areas at EPCAL and, you know, all throughout downtown. This opportunity zone is actually another tool in the toolbox for downtown revitalization. But if you can't build anything that's going to provide a return on investment, then why have it? And the opportunity zones have been depicted. They're not changing until 1943, I think. It's what they are. Nobody else can get them, and there's several other towns that want them.
1943?
Yep.
46.
46.
I'm sorry, 2046.
Oh, I was gonna say.
2046.
2046 or 2043?
46.
Okay. 2046. Nobody else can get them. Other towns want them, and they're just not there. Because we are the lowest income town on the census tract, that they are trying to make it a market value and bring up the property values and help the school district. And, you know, I mean, our market values are here, but our school taxes are here. So that's why we have the opportunity zone to try and balance it out. And that's why we were granted an opportunity zone, which there are very few in New York State. But we're one of them, because they look at the census tract and say, wow, this is one of the lowest income towns in New York State. Let's make it an opportunity zone, so investors will come and bring money in there and bring up the market values. So we can't lose sight of that either.
I totally agree with what you're saying. So does that mean that you're going to revisit the 500 cap? Because that seems to be the lead issue, not anything else, because nothing else is going to get built without the 500 cap changing.
I think it's something that has to be discussed, and I think that if we are looking to step back buildings and lower heights and, you know, provide additional uses for these buildings and different aspects in zoning and provide the parking that comes with the buildings that anybody's coming in.
So
It all has to be looked at.
Lower heights, just bringing it down a little, would allow more residential in the downtown area at a scaled build out. Because there's about 112 parcels.
But you said 4 stories, so.
It's not going to, but you're going to hit it so quick, whether you know, hit it, you know, with the, I mean, it's not going to make that much of a difference. So maybe you have 20 more units or something like that. But the big issue is, you know, do you want to have more residential units here?
Effect. I mean, you grow slowly. I mean, it may be the greatest thing that ever hit downtown was the walkable, livable communities, and, you know, we might want more of that, you know, but it might.
But at 5 stories? The canyon effect then?
Well,
You
it-
said
that
4
comes down to
stories,
design.
so.
No, I'm saying, but I'm saying.
For me, personally, it
Yeah.
comes down to design. Design, you can't see the river with a 2-story building, so the height, as long as it's design and streetscapes and sitescapes.
So a lower,
most important.
so a lower FAR then?
That might be the way to.
Yeah, but it's a moot point, is this point, but, because even if you say 3 stories, okay, it's not allowed. You've hit the 500 mark. Once these
Right.
So it doesn't matter anymore.
But I think that and it's something that I've said from the very beginning in starting this study, is that we need to look at the diversity that we have in our town. And we need to balance what we have as far as workforce housing, affordable housing, market rate, and mid-range. And get more of a diversified living community downtown that work together. And I think that that's something that we need to look at, is what type, how much affordable housing do we have in the town of Riverhead? We have manufactured home parks, we have affordable apartments, we have all rental, we have no ownership opportunities in downtown as far as units. And people that want to live in a downtown, a young couple that's starting out where one of them's going to school and the other one's working at the hospital, and they can afford an apartment for $150,000 to buy it and own it and have equity in it, so that they can turn that equity into a house when they start a family, and that unit can be sold to somebody else that wants to buy something and own something in a downtown setting.
Was that all? Were you done?
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, I know we're gonna be wrapping up soon, but on a positive note, a lot of good things came out about Riverhead, and one of the great things about Riverhead is our community, and I'm very pleased with the turnout that we had tonight, and I think we're all looking to make our town an even better place.
And, let's get that sign fixed.
Yep,
And
did
it's
you wanna,
freezing and you came out in the
did
cold.
you wanna come up?
I think Kiwanis owns that, I think that's a rodent sign. Is there somebody talking? Yep. Who's talking?
Yeah, it should be out within the next couple weeks. It's just still in draft form, so it should be finished within the next couple weeks to go out, and then it'll go on.
Yeah, we need to speak to you about that. Is this kind of situation for that? We can marry the two ideas and do it.
Yes.
This is great. Nobody said that they were not, they didn't feel safe down there.
Nobody said what?
No one didn't say that they did not feel safe. No safety is not a good.
Good. See, we're making progress.
Not the problem anymore, right?
We're making progress.